Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Sunday, April 6, 2025, and today's topic will be a continuation of yesterday's, and it's going to be about drawing perspective, focusing on horizon lines. So I'll link to yesterday's video, which started off and then I worked on it some more just so you can see. Check out yesterday's video if you want to know more details about kind of the basics of perspective and different approaches to it. And so I'm doing a deep dive, which means I'm sticking with the same topic for a few videos. So today I thought it would be good to continue by talking about like the idea of horizon lines. In yesterday's video, I kind of showed how to basically freehand the vanishing points and stuff just based upon like the way it looks. It's not like technically correct, but it's visually correct. And so in this area, the next step I'm thinking is understanding horizon lines. And some of this is stuff that like I practiced or learned like a long time ago, and it's kind of good to go over it again. When I started learning about perspective, like one of the things that helped was to understand the horizon line. Sometimes it's called so let's just draw get warmed up here. Oh, before we begin, welcome back if you're returning, and welcome if you're new. I sketch and post every day, and I use a timer to stay focused and to build a habit. So I'll start a 10-minute timer. But so there's different names, so it's helpful to create some thumbnails. So just to begin, so I'll use this blue pen, and then I can go in with like the black ink. So this has to do with composition and perspective. They go together. Like they don't have to be, but like they have similarities. And I do have a series or like a deep dive that I called intermediate level drawing. If you want to check that out, it's from last week. And some of these concepts are in there, but I'm focusing a little bit more on the perspective this time. So the composition itself is the observer. So I found that that's a helpful way to think about it. So for example, let's say in this composition, if I were to draw, we'll call this the horizon line, then the observer is the composition itself is like the observer. That's the observer's eye level. So it might be helpful to do another one. So I'm going to draw it up here. So again, the composition is the actual observer, but you're the one, you're the viewer of it. But it's the composition, or like the panel could be another way to think about it. So down here, we'll put it this way. Now I'll put some objects in there to make more sense, but this is just to begin with. And that's why I like to play around with landscapes, because a lot of times landscapes are kind of like this. Like it could just be a very simple landscape. So one thing that photography helps with, because these ideas were before like photography, but like photography kind of helps with the metaphor. So for example, in photography, let's say that the photographer takes this photo right here. So that's where like the camera frame, like that's where the camera, like, yeah, the frame of the camera took that photo. So maybe that'll help. Like that's actually where like the camera is. So maybe, well, I don't want to draw in that, but I think you get the idea. But to me, like it kind of helped to think about it like that. So yeah, from here, that's why I think it's helpful to have a composition. And there's different approaches, as always. I mean, you can start with the object. So you can kind of see here, like I just started with a drawing, like a sketch or a doodle or something. And then the perspective is not like technically correct, but it sort of set up the rest of the composition. Whereas here, I started with the perspective and then filled in the details. So same thing here, like you can start with a composition and just go like this. And so everything will be relative to this, because this is like that's where the actual viewpoint is, right here. That's where like the camera is. So maybe I'll just kind of sketch a camera right here. Same with this. So with that in mind, like everything that goes on, so we can place some boxes. So let's say that that's like the front of those boxes. So you can keep it like that. That's what I was saying about like perspective or like composition, like the way it goes together is that like this is the composition. You can have perspective just by drawing like that is perspective. Like it could work. And it would be a composition. And it would have perspective. Because it depends on the object. So I'll keep using this blue line for the guidelines, and then I'll draw in, because these boxes can look different. Like these boxes could have different shapes or like lengths and stuff. So for example, and they can go to different vanishing points. So for example, let's say I go like this. So the thing about perspective is that everything will tend to go towards that horizon line. I say tend to because it depends on like what it is. So like it depends on the object. So it can go to different ones. It can go here. This one can go over here. Because it's moving in 3D space, although it's a 2D surface. So these don't really matter, like the ones back there. So now that we set that up, I'll just use a black pen. So again, it depends on like the shape of the boxes. So this one could be tilted. This one could be like a different length. And this one could be like pretty and they don't have to be like have that much like thickness to them. Some of them could just be flat, kind of. You see what I'm saying? Like it could be above the horizon line, but depending on how it's actually positioned in the picture, like it may not have those vanishing points. But if it did, it'd be like going towards the horizon. But it depends on how it's positioned in there. It could be more like forward facing. So hopefully that makes sense. And that's kind of how you get like asteroids. So you can have this. So you might want to play around with that, like that idea, and just use squares to keep it simple. Again, it can go to this vanishing point, kind of like this. And that's how you kind of tilt it. So that's one idea. So over here we have the horizon line, or the viewpoint, or the eye level, or the observer. That's kind of a new term that I put in that I added to that. So like, yeah, like the observer is right here, or like the camera itself is right up here. So that means that there could be objects. We'll stick with some boxes, or maybe I'll kind of add these we'll stick with boxes, but I'll make them look like houses, kind of. Since that's what this page is about. So I'll put in kind of like the front, and I'll just put in a few like front, or like one side of it. So that means that, again, they can face different, or like, yeah, go to different vanishing points. That's what this is. But they're going towards that horizon. Same with that. So then, just to make them look like houses, I'll put some roofs on them. And that's how you can get them to turn. So notice this one. You see that? Now, this could work because they could be on different levels of ground. Like, they could be built, or they could be like different heights. Kind of like this. It's still, this line is still going to go towards that horizon. And depending on like the roofs, like this near one right here, depending on, yeah, like the direction it's facing, the vanishing points is actually going like behind it. So just to throw in a few more, like if it's far away, it could be like this. So that has something to do with it too. It's like the distance. I'm just eyeballing the distance, like the scale. It starts to get a little bit more advanced, because then you're talking about like the scale of stuff. But if you can build off of it. So for example, if I wanted to have a building right here, but like tilt it in another direction, but also in perspective, you could go like this, and it would be sitting on the same, so kind of like this. So this would be sitting, it's in perspective in the sense that it's sitting on the same plane. So this is correct to that, like it's sitting on that same level because I'm building it off of that. But as far as like the scale of it, like how do you know, like if I drew this bigger, then, or like even this one, you can see that then it suggests that that's like a bigger building, although it's further back. Again, some of this you just kind of have to play around with, and you'll get it. But that's like kind of the technical detail. As far as like 2-point or 1-point or whatever. So for example, all of these, like where it's sitting on the ground, you can have it go like this. And so basically these are like 1 point, I guess. And I think that it's good to just kind of keep it simple so that you understand it before you try to get like fancy with it. Or like make it too complicated. Now, of course, you can look at some pictures, look at some photos, and that'll help. But this is basically how to draw it. When you are looking at like a picture, it'll help you to kind of get an idea of what's happening. So there's that one. Now moving on to this one. The camera or observer or horizon is like right here, and this is the composition. So what that means is, let's do like some clouds and stuff, because obviously it depends on also like the subject matter sort of lends itself to certain compositions. So for example, if you're like, I mean, you could do buildings. I'll do a building and some clouds. So I'll do like a tower, but so let's just throw like a tower looking shape if we do some clouds. But what we'll do is like boxy clouds, like Minecraft clouds. So if I draw in like a shape, so notice that I kind of gave it like a vanishing point, but I'm not going to do that. Again, keeping it simple. Now the reason I did that is because a lot of times when I'm just sketching stuff, like it depends on the style. Like this doesn't really matter. Like it can be a little wonky. Like it looks kind of cartoony. So, and then I'll even put like something down here and then like another square up here. So if you do that, because the camera is like right here, or the observer is right here, like that's literally like the observer in that composition. That means that the observer or the camera, let's say that this is like a round like tower thing, you're going to see underneath it, since the camera's down here and anything, it's like you're looking up, or the person that's looking in that picture is looking up. Or like, yeah, whoever. That's why I call it the camera, because the camera, like the cameraman, it's the person that's holding the camera. So that's why you can see like under this thing. And if you draw like a shape right here, like let's say that's a cloud, and kind of, that's why you can see underneath the cloud. Same with this, because the camera's down here and it's like looking up at it. And then if this is like a rooftop, then you're seeing like the top of the rooftop, and anything that goes up to the horizon line will be more like, you're not seeing underneath it, it'll be straight on to the camera. Hopefully that made sense. You kind of just have to like do these little thumbnails and play around with it, but I think that'll be good for today. So basically the horizon line, which sometimes might be helpful to think of as like where the camera is positioned when it took like the picture. And to kind of wrap it up, I'll outline this real quick. So yeah, it might be good to use a pencil or just like a different color pen. So notice like the vanishing points would go towards that horizon still. Now clouds obviously can be kind of amorphous, but you can like simplify it. So yeah, that'll be it for today. I'll continue the perspective deep dive, and I want to thank you for joining me for our daily sketching routine. And if you enjoy these videos, please support the channel. I appreciate it. And until next time, keep on sketching.